wrote your name on the card? What's your name? Mun, M-U-N-T-A-C.
M-O-N-T-A-C. Christine, I have to apologize, man. I don't have my glasses on. So.
That's okay, I gave you just listen.
Please do. Thank you. I don't have my glasses on. Thank you.
Can everyone hear me?
Not really.
Is it not on? Okay, it says on.
It's on.
Try holding it like this.
Yeah.
Keep my-
Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, good afternoon, actually.
It's
Okay.
here, you have to hold on.
Oh, got it, yeah. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christy Williams. Thank you for inviting me. Well, thank you for inviting Clinic. I work for the Catholic Legal Immigration Network. That is a nonprofit organization and still based out of Silver Spring, Maryland. Currently, it is the largest nonprofit legal support network that provides support to immigration, legal services programs across the country. We have a little over 300 organizations within our network that provide direct legal services to immigrants across the country. Within Clinic, I work in the advocacy department where we provide support to our local partners in various locations across the country who do advocacy work either at the grassroots level or at the state level. I am the state and local advocacy attorney. A little bit about myself before I joined Clinic. I practice immigration law primarily at a law firm in Silver Spring, Maryland, where I represented individuals in removal proceedings, in family-based petition, trying to bring relatives out of from out of the country, or petitioning for those who are currently here. Those that are in detention facilities, in removal proceedings, I represented them as well. And then I joined Clinic to do some policy work. So my primary responsibility as a state and local advocacy attorney is that I provide direct support to our partners who respond to state immigration legislation. I track state immigration legislation, bills, resolutions, city ordinances that address various immigration issues such as local police participation in immigration enforcement, driver's licenses for immigrants, in-state tuition for undocumented residents. I track all that across all 50 states and localities. That's a lot of work. I respond to requests from some of our affiliates on the ground who want to respond to these issues that are impacting their community and impacting the immigrants that they serve. Some of the support work I do is I provide legal analysis of the proposed legislation. A lot of these bills are written by lawyers. They end up becoming laws, and then attorneys have to then apply them to various situations that they are working on. And so in order for people with no legal training to either oppose or support these policies, they have to understand them. And so they reach out to us to gain some understanding of how some of the legal issues involved. And of course, we offer some analysis of how it could potentially impact the community as well as the work that they're providing to immigrants in the community. So that's just a snapshot of what we do at Clinic. Of course, there are several other sections within Clinic. We have our training and legal service section where they provide direct training to legal practitioners across the country who actually provide these services. And then we have our capacity building department who support these organizations to build capacity to provide the services in the community. And we also have our religious immigration service department who represent some religious workers here on religious visas as well. So it's quite a bit of work that we do in the immigration realm. So today, I would like to touch very briefly on the narrative that we've heard over the past few months, actually a few years, but really in the last few months regarding immigrants and immigrant integration, public safety and whatnot. There has been quite a bit of state and local response when it comes to immigration issues. Just to give you some numbers, last year, 2016, there were a little over 200 state immigration laws that were enacted. I think there were like 220 something. And they were addressing various issues such as police participation in immigration enforcement and whatnot, sanctuary cities, and the like. This year, in between January 1st and June, we have a little over 300 immigration-related state legislation. And this is just the state.
On top of the 200 or?
This is,
No,
these are two
following
separate
year.
years.
Yep.
So last year was a little over 200 between January 1st and June. And within the same period this year, that number increased drastically. And I want to believe, and of course we don't have any evidence of this, but I want to believe that that's been motivated by a lot of the federal policies and federal action on immigration enforcement, particularly beginning with the executive orders on immigration.
Yes.
And so there has been that trickle down effect where state legislators are feeling compelled to address these issues, because you have to understand that when the federal government implements a policy on immigration and refugee resettlement, the impact is felt mostly within the communities at the state levels. And so oftentimes, state legislators feel the need to act in the best interest of the communities that they represent. And so the majority of the bills that we've seen proposed, and some have been enacted, but the majority of the bills that we've seen proposed at least have addressed local police participation in immigration enforcement. The way some of the bills have been written, it's really not clear what local police participation will be. A lot of them, so the boilerplate language really I've seen in maybe more than 100 of them has been local police must cooperate or assist federal immigration authorities in their duties in the enforcement of immigration law. Well, we don't know what cooperation is, we don't know what assist is. Does assist mean they're gonna drive someone in the community to identify immigrants for removal, or are they going to just respond to certain requests from the federal government? Some of these bills are not quite clear. And just to give you an example of areas where we've seen some restrictive immigration laws have been passed, for example, Texas. I'm sure you all have heard a lot of noise about the SB4 in Texas. So that was a battle. It was quite a battle, actually quite a few months. And there are resources. I see a couple of people picked up some resources I brought back there. Please feel free to take as many as you need. So the SB4 law, just in a nutshell, it's a little bit more to it, but just in a nutshell, the law basically states that local police and law enforcement, sheriff included, has to comply with ICE requests to detain people who are suspected of being in violation of civil immigration laws. Now, being in the country without status is really a civil offense. Civil immigration offense is federal. And so the SB4 law is basically saying, well, when ICE contacts Dallas PD and says John Doe is in your custody, instead of releasing John Doe, please keep him there a little longer so we can pick him up. Now, the problem with that is, usually John Doe, under state law, John Doe is probably supposed to be released tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock because maybe he made bail or for whatever other reasons that's allowed by state law. Now, if the police department decides to keep John Doe there for an additional day or 2 days or 3 days, then we're going into whether or not that's constitutional, because if you're detaining someone without any lawful reason, then are you detaining them lawfully? That's a constitutional issue. And that has been, several federal courts have ruled upon that and said that that raises serious constitutional concerns. And actually, a law enforcement agency in Allentown, Pennsylvania, was sued for doing something similar. And the interesting thing is, they thought the individual they held was an immigrant, but it was actually a U.S. citizen. And so that then goes into other issues such as maybe racial profiling, maybe ethnic profiling, or maybe based on his nationality. There are other issues that could come up in the process. And so a lot of these policies that are being proposed or enacted by state lawmakers raise serious concerns, even though some may be trying to curb what they think is a problem in their community, but there are other social issues that are connected to it that affect everyone within the community. One thing that I also wanted to highlight, there is currently a bill that passed the legislature in Illinois. It's now eligible for the governor's signature, and that bill basically states that it's a trust act, and basically they're saying that in order for a local police department or a law enforcement agency to comply with certain requests from ICE to detain people, ICE would have to present a judicial warrant. So a judicial warrant means it has to be signed by the judge. And in order for a judge to sign a warrant, that person has to have probable cause that this person did something wrong that supports or justifies them being detained, which is the proper legal format. So that debate, a lot of people who think that there should be harsher immigration policies think that that is too soft on, curbing illegal immigration, and that's their term. And so I just wanted to give you two separate policies so you understand how these issues can play out in different areas. Of course, the DC area has been more proactive in making the community, at least the District of Columbia, immigrant friendly. For example, when the executive orders on immigration was signed, especially the one on interior enforcement where the president directed federal agencies to defund sanctuary cities and increase immigration enforcement across the country by collaborating with local law enforcement. The District of Columbia passed a resolution denouncing certain immigration raids within the District of Columbia, saying that it puts people in fear of law enforcement. It erodes the public trust in interacting with law enforcement and the like. And in addition to that, DC actually just enacted a law to penalize people who misrepresent themselves as being qualified to provide immigration legal services to the community, because immigration legal services is a connecting vein to all of this, like removal proceedings as well, because some people who may otherwise be eligible for an immigration relief, if they get services from people who are not qualified to provide immigration legal services, they end up in a situation where they may be placed in removal proceedings when they could have gone to someone who was qualified to provide these services. And so the District of Columbia now has made that a crime to do that. So that's great. And I think there's also talks to create an immigration legal service aid, where people that are poor and cannot afford to hire an attorney can apply for immigration legal assistance, and the district will pay for it. And so these are some of the things that are happening on the state and local levels. You might ask, well, why is it important, or how can I advocate? Why is it important to advocate for these policies, and why is it important? One of the things I'll say is that it's very important as an advocate to speak up for these issues in order to hold our leaders accountable to us as a community, to focus on the critical issues that are a priority to us. For example, public safety. A lot of the resources that could go that